essentially what the administration is doing is fixing our urban rural divide via infrastructure building and actually public partnerships. Credit to Jose. He brought this up I think it was a couple weeks ago. He brought this up recently that Bill Gates and Microsoft are buying up agricultural land to stop China from buying it. Now, it's a little bit interesting though, because at least in my state, what's happening is they're actually buying up retired orchards and turning them into nuclear data centers. And he's also, but here's what's interesting is they're also building schools there, and they're building their own future employee base by funding scholarships. And so that's what was going on in my state. That was easy to track. But I wanted to see if that was taking place in other places in throughout the country. Absolutely, it is. So there is basically 6 key industries and regional target zones that the administration is rebuilding. One is the automated textiles in the Southeast, which is mostly in the Carolinas and Georgia. The second one is modernizing livestock. So we want to keep our cattlers happy down in Texas. We love our cattlers, but we need to have some products that are low water, and sheep is a really great new industry to build. So it's scaling into the expanded domestic sheep industry, and that's going to be in the high plains. And then there's domestic seafood processing. This is really interesting to me. That's going to be on the West Coast and the Alaska ports, as well as parts of Florida. But they're actually using robotics so that they can undercut Chinese workers. So they're using like very specific like arm. I don't really understand it because I don't understand robots. They're using robotics. And then there's medical processing and biomanufacturing in the Great Lakes and the Rust Belt. So he is actually doing something incredible because he's actually merging the like eco-friendly desires of the kind of liberal left and the nationalist sort of blue collar like rebuilding by repurposing some of these old buildings. So the reason he's doing it there is he's taking these old hubs that were like used to be like car manufacturing and things like that, because they have the kind of energy infrastructure for it. He's basically using private public partnerships, is rebuilding them and repairing them to be used for biomanufacturing and medical processing. And then nuclear energy revival in the Southwest predominantly. And that's happening in a few places, but that's where the biggest hub is, according to AI. And then advanced tech and AI computing in the Intermountain West. The Intermountain West would be places like Utah, Wyoming, Colorado. Yeah. So that is my quick and dirty rundown. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I found really fascinating, but I think everybody else would find really boring because, I'm not going to hold you all captive to my hyper focus, but yeah.
So let me. I'll just. I'll just use this opportunity to say something about the superiority of the U.S. model to the Chinese model when it comes to dealing with things, right? Because private-public partnerships are a great way to get the government involved without having a command top-down government, um, middling that slows everything down. Because the problem with government getting involved and running things is that they're not profit you're not motivated by profit, and that's why they're not going to try to reduce costs and make things more efficient in a way that a private company is. The whole point of creating public private partnerships is to be able to get the government in boosting certain things that require more boosting, but keep the profit motive and the private sector's efficiency still involved in making sure things get done right, and not get the government basically managing things, getting the private sector managing it. So that's a very efficient way. Again, when it comes to the best solutions to all of this, using AI for agriculture, using robotics for agriculture, you always assume that the best solution cannot be determined by armchair philosophers thinking about things, thinking like, oh, wouldn't that be a good idea? You have no idea. right? The only if people buy it, it's a good idea, and you will never know if there's demand for it unless you test it, unless you put it out there and see if there's demand for it. And this is the weakness of the Chinese model. A lot of people will keep getting impressed about what China is doing because, given the level of government involvement, they're going to be able to move resources faster at a much higher level and make decisions with less accountability and a lot less bureaucracy and a lot less accountability. So things will move faster, things will be done faster, but it will not be as good of a result as the slower American version. On the American side, decisions will be made slower, but they will be made right. So short term, everything China will be doing when it comes to solar panel, AI, robotics, is going to look so impressive. It's going to look big. It's going to go look fast. It's going to look flashy. It's going to look very impressive, and people are going to every time people are going to look at it and going to like, oh, China is winning it. United States is losing it. This is basically the difference between somebody who's running like is like millions of dollars in debt and running on credit cards, driving a very expensive car, living in a big house, and thinking like, oh my god, this person has it made, look at this lifestyle, compared to somebody that has a much more simple lifestyle because the guy is putting the money back into his business instead of paying himself, and every time he's paying himself, he's putting a lot of it into, I don't know, ETFs and investing it. And when his business is making millions of dollars, instead of paying himself and increasing the size of his house or and buying a car, is just putting the money back in the business to grow. So you look at their lifestyle, you think like the other guy with the Lamborghini is probably doing better, but nope, the other guy that is growing slowly is actually doing a lot better. And that's the difference between America and China right now.
Okay, I have some twos. Let's go to Shauna first.
Yeah, so the other thing too that's really interesting about this that I found is the cultural element of America, because one of the things that has happened, this was more regional to me, but on the east side of the mountains, our states are divided. There's a huge mountain between Washington and Oregon, or not on each side of Washington and Oregon. Anyway, the east side of the mountains, they were like there was communities who were threatening to basically secede from the states. They were like there was a whole like there was like 13, and that has been going on for years. And the reason for that is because the west side has all of the money, but the east side grows all of the food, and the west side is largely urban and has been really twatty. I'll be honest. I live on the west side. They've been kind of assholes. I'm gonna be real honest. Um, and so the east side, they don't want to be told that they're bigots because they can't make any profit because they don't have a market for their agricultural surplus, which is basically what's been happening for the last like 20 years. But what's really interesting about this is because um, the liberals and the tech elites kind of realized, okay, we can't have all of this internal division is literally causing like economic downturn and cutting into our profits. They have basically gotten on board with a lot of Trump's stuff. It's just happening on like local levels, and it's happening via like profit motives. And so it's not being seen. It took me a long time to be like, I'm like, there's a dot here and I'm not connecting them. But I finally figured out what was going on. So yeah, that's the other
All right,
thing too, is like America can adjust when it starts to see too much internal fracturing.
all right, guys, we're running out of time, so everybody else
Okay.
can keep
Yep.
it short, please. Thank
Shut
you.
up.
Yeah, let's go for maybe 30 seconds each. So, Monkey, go next.
Yes, one thing I wanted to point out is that this dispels the myth that we need endless illegal workers so that we have a working class that has less rights and are undocumented. Because if we have robots that can do this job at a rate that's so low that it's undercutting China, then this myth of us needing this population here because of the demographics, because of the workers, that turns itself into a myth. You don't need these people here because if it's undercutting China, that means that it costs less than it does to pay a regular immigrant worker. A regular immigrant worker in the United States makes a lot more money than the people in China make. Like that's just a fact. So when you switching to robotics, it may be front heavy. You may have an initial investment that's a little higher, but over the long term, it's a lot more savings, a lot more efficient, and it frees up labor to do other things and find maybe higher paying jobs and things that were robots still can't do that. So I just want to say we don't need all these illegal immigrants to do these jobs. We got robots.
Okay. Thank you, Monkey. Let's go to Jose next. Jose?
Yeah. Two quick points. You guys know that everything that Bill Gates touches turns into gold. Well, his current project is with the fishing industry or the meat industry. He's trying to come up with he's trying to work on a replacement for tofu. Something that actually tastes good and is a lot more nutritious. That's his goal right now. So keep an eye out for that. Second, Shauna, you missed an opportunity there. The textile industry returning to the United States from China is what's happening in Georgia. Yes, robotics are being used, but I can tell you right now, my mother and all my aunts worked in the textile industry here in Florida, and they all had to learn brand new skills when one after another of those companies shut down. So it's a return of an industry that was once very predominant all over the East Coast and Midwest, and it's now slowly returning. Robotic, we'll see how good the robotics are because China World Factories went robotics. They fired all their employees, and then their employees were the number one customers. They didn't buy their products. So those robots are sitting in trash heaps all over China.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.